Garrett with Counterpoint here in New York at Samsung's Unpacked event, second half of the year, 2025, with Tyler Gipson, talking about the event, talking about what this means for the B2B space. So Tyler, maybe you can give a quick introduction of yourself, and you're new in this role that you currently have, but
Sure.
not new to the space.
Yeah, not new to the space, newer to Samsung and new to this role. So been at Samsung for almost 2 years now. First 3 quarters of that, GM with responsibility for our AT&T relationship. And in the last quarter was asked to take the role as the head of our B2B mobile team in the US. And so that encompasses everything from sales to product to marketing to supply chain, really across all client segments, whether it be enterprise, SMB, government, et cetera, and then across all channels, whether it be VARs, distributors, or carriers. And so prior to that, I spent about 23 years at Cisco, a lot in the carrier space and B2B space. And so hopefully bringing those all back together here to lay the path for Samsung Mobile B2B going forward.
Awesome. Yeah. So what is, as you're starting now or recently started this role, what is kind of your vision, or what is, looking back over the last year, kind of where has Samsung been, where you think you've been, where do you want to go over the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, Samsung's certainly been on a journey. Over the last year and a half, obviously AI has taken the world by storm. Samsung has always produced amazing products, whether it be in the mobile space, the appliance space, TV, et cetera, displays. And I think over the last year and a half, you've really seen us invest in what the future of AI looks like. Yeah. And I think one of the things that serves us very well is sort of our tradition and history of being a very open ecosystem and embracing, the various software components and AI components that are probably going to come together to form a solution. And so as I took over this role 3 months ago, one of the things that rang very true to me as I inherited the team was a lot of talk about solutions, partnering, and openness. And I was so happy to hear that when I took this role, because I do believe that's the right approach to our customers. And I think it's an advantage for us as we approach the customers to really understand their problems and their challenges and for us to help solve them. And so honestly, my mission is to maintain that kind of plan and really just engage with customers and understand where they're at in their journey, where they're at in their AI journey, and help them choose the right devices, technologies to meet their needs.
Yeah. I think that's a great path and a great, I think, starting point to see how all of this hardware that we saw today with the new Fold, the Fold 7, the new Flips, and the FE kind of all contribute to that. So what is your, you already said focusing on solutions and a holistic approach. So what is the main pain point that I think you're trying to address now over the next year or so?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll start with a little bit of what we introduced today and just try to build on that a little bit. And so today you can kind of think of it very simply as the Ultra unfolds. And what do we mean by that, right? We're now in our 7th generation of foldable technology. And I think anybody, after they see our announcement today and get their hands on the device, will realize that in the 7th year, that was probably the most revolutionary design that we've ever accomplished, right? It's thinner, it's lighter, it's more durable. All things we've heard from our consumers over time of what they wanted us to improve. It's got a better camera. It's got a better battery. It's got a more usable front screen. And so all the decision points that customers, businesses, or consumers had over time of, do I want a more bar type form or a foldable? We know the foldable is the ultimate workforce productivity tool. However, it came with some trade-offs, right? Do I want a little smaller front screen? Do I want a little less camera? Do I want a little less battery? We've now fixed all of those. The S25 Ultra camera will carry over to the Fold in terms of 200 megapixel camera. The front screen at 6.5 inches is now very equivalent to a bar type phone, and the weight and thickness is also very equivalent. And so we think we've given the foundational element to build solutions around that now. So that then takes us into, how do we bring AI? How do we bring third party, whether it be third party software as in operating systems like a Microsoft Teams or partners like Scandit, and then how do we put services around it to deliver our solutions to our customers? And we have some really good use cases we can dive into where we've seen Fold adopted specifically in either retail or healthcare or others.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue. I think for the Fold, I think, has always been talked about, like you said, the productivity workhorse.
Yeah.
But I think what piqued my interest today during the event was highlighting how some of the AI apps are now more optimized for the larger screen. And I think that's, for me, a really important point in the path to creating kind of that solution, those types of solution you talked about, showcasing real implementations, to do more with a screen that is at this point still a very expensive device, but starting to showcase really that there's development going on that really drives at providing a better or more holistic or more intuitive, more productive solution.
Yeah.
So how do you go from where we are today then, and how do you bring that message across to the enterprise and showcase the capabilities that an enterprise might be looking for in healthcare or other verticals?
Yeah. And to your point, we've spent a lot of time on sort of what we're calling the multimodal development, right? And so, traditionally you use one app, you move out of that, you move into another app. And so in today's age, especially with an 8-inch folded out screen, the desire and need to be in one app, but maybe summarize that from an AI text to have the summary of the article here, or to look at the source of where something's coming from and have a flex window floating around is what we introduced today. And so just making it more usable, honestly, to the everyday user. And then sort of in addition to that flex AI window of kind of, if I'm in a document and I want to use my camera to look at what I'm looking at in the room to kind of put two things together to kind of understand context, we're allowing that as well. And so you could see that pave its way to different business applications. I'll tell you a really good example of where we've had good success with Fold in the past. So to your point, it's not the cheapest device, right? Now at $1,999. But if you can imagine, we've worked with a lot of retail corporations that first and foremost is, what's the TCO? Can I consolidate two devices in one? Absolutely. Could I consolidate three in one? Maybe, especially with the use of DeX and kind of using that as an extended desktop-like experience. So it's like check on TCO. But then you kind of get into, how do I enable employee productivity and happiness, by the way? And how do I enable better client and customer engagement, especially on the retail front? And so working with a very large sporting goods manufacturer and retailer, we've worked with them to really make sure that their managers are on the floor more. Not in an office doing Excel sheets and time clocks and that kind of thing, but really on the floor with customers, with their employees, with a very productive device in their hands that helps them do all those chores on the floor. And so it's been a really good use case of where we've seen that TCO really take care of itself in that situation.
I think yesterday, when we talked ahead of the event, you brought up the example of a real estate agent. I think that really speaks to how I see somebody really getting a benefit out of a device like this, or a group, whether it's a large organization or a small organization, really being able to utilize, even if it's a premium device, really getting a lot of value out of it by having, Office on the go, everything on the go, and being able to open up a larger screen to be really interactive with clients or customers. And that's really stuck out to me yesterday as well when he talked about that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that gives a lot of touch points or potential touch points for business use of any kind or any size.
I think you're right. It's, when you kind of look at it, you could look at vertical industries, but then you could also look at sort of the traditional, person out in front of customers. That could be any vertical. It could be real estate. It could be sales, right? It could be healthcare.
Yeah.
So another example is home healthcare, a rising aging or an increasing aging population we have, and the need to just service customers in their home. A lot of these medical providers go into homes with a multitude of things in their bag, mostly, medical devices and everything else. Why should they be saddled with 3 or 4 communication devices, right? We've had a lot of good success of consolidating them down to a fold device, phone, tablet. Some of them carry pagers, some carry a PC. They got to go take notes. This absolutely replaces all that and allows them to focus on the care and the home and the medical devices and the customer. And it takes all the communications out of the equation and provides them a nice, simple form factor. And then we'll also work with third-party software companies that they may need for their job to really customize how that lays out on the screen so that it's usable for them.
Has that that interaction with enterprise developers, or that part of their organization change over the last year or so, where they are now seeing, there's more trust in terms of on-device AI versus the cloud, versus we have a better understanding what we want to do with AI and how to enable what we want to do with AI.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that part as a vehicle to really, get end users, so to speak, on board with these types of solutions?
Yeah, we have a lot of learning lessons. Let me put it that way. We rushed out, a year and a half ago and kind of said, "Hey, we got AI. We think you should use it, Mr. Customer." And they said, "Oh, we're a little scared of what AI is doing right now, where the data is going." And so, we've really been on a learning journey, and I think we will continue to be on a learning journey. I think 2 or 3 things I'd point to is those learning lessons that we continue to kind of tweak as we go here. One, to your point, customers really wanted to understand, where is the data residing? Is it on device? Is it in the cloud? Is it both? Do I have control over it? And is it transparent to me of where that's residing? And so check, yes, it resides on the device or cloud. Check, you have control over it. Check, you have transparency. So I think we've maybe not solved that equation, but understand how to talk to customers about that equation and what they need. And so once that's kind of done, the second learning we had was, workplaces want to have a very discreet tie to you as their employee. So we had to create a Samsung business account versus your traditional consumer type account, so that to use AI, employees could then engage with that. And then the third, which is we're on the very early stages of, is we're starting to develop an AI SDK, so that customers in certain situations that make sense for us, we can allow them to start to engage with, sort of co-developing with our AI tools. And so if you kind of extract that out to what we talked about today, kind of this multimodal AI capability, we foresee this future of kind of being an open AI aggregator on our phone, because I don't think there's going to be a single AI winner, right? And so again, in sort of our advantage to help customers that may need many forms of that, we'll allow that enablement and sort of that linkage into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's still a big part of the overall discussion, see how an enterprise or an organization can really utilize this to the best of their ability, or the best interest of their organization. I still think back on this talk about Gentic AI and the phone doing things and the platform doing things, but do you always want everything to be done? Like if you think about banking or healthcare, right? Do you really want an agent or 2 or 3 agents have unlimited access to your bank account or your health information? So I think that's still a lot of work to be done, and where enterprises, I think, are still finding their feet and trying to understand how to best implement that.
That's right. I think it's the better safe than sorry approach, right? They got to be cautious. The last thing they want to do is risk exposing that data. And so we're seeing a little cautious approach. The one area we've seen them lean into is where we can prove to them that it is truly on device, data kept, live translation. So if you think about any business in the world, that any customer that speaks any language walks into the door, they want to be able to interact with in a better way. And so again, regardless of vertical, where you interact with customers, we've seen a huge adoption of live translation to help employees engage with customers. And so, sometimes we think of AI as this pretty complicated thing. And so sometimes boiling it down to these use cases that can be impact their business is hopeless.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Switching from the Fold, what I think was the focus of productivity today, but for me, the Flip also has a role in enterprise, and now having the FE version available, I think, of course, the focus today at the event was a lot of addressing consumer segments that might be new to the Foldable, but at the same time, this also applies for the enterprise, right? So you already had some deployments, I believe, with a Flip in certain cases. So having a cheaper alternative or a cheaper option, in my eyes, opens up the field even more for that device to be a enterprise AI-enabled foldable. How do you see that form factor developing over the next couple of years? In terms of how you guys focus on it internally and in the drive towards enterprise.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 things to unpack there. Maybe I'll start with the Flip FE. But to your point, just finding a lower cost entry point expands the target market for that. And we continue to be on a journey 7 years in to expand that target market. And we absolutely believe it is a mainstream market. And so just making that device more accessible helps the overall flip fold portfolio. Two, and the flip device itself obviously is a different target audience than the workhorse of the fold. The flip is a little bit more designed to be compact, discreet, etc. It could evolve into the ultimate AI companion, right? As things become more naturally interactive with their phones and not so touch oriented, to have such a small form factor that you can now talk to Galaxy AI or Gemini and get results is a very real thing. Now, to your point about use cases we've seen in the field, and some of the things we've announced today, one of the really cool use cases we've seen over the last year is working with police forces to use as a body-worn camera that's then integrated in their systems. It could detect, real-life chases and turn on the camera and other things that kind of help keep everybody safe. The challenge with the flip is we never had DeX available for the flip. So DeX is our digital experience. And so adding that to the flip now takes it from this kind of small form factor thing that's a little bit more for enthusiasts, influencers, that kind of thing, to something that is actually a very productive device in the field, because you can extend it to a monitor and now you can have a desktop-like experience with the flip. And so adding DeX to that today, I think makes it even more relevant for our businesses than it's been. And I hope we see, some uptake from that.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good point. And there was not a whole lot of focus today on DeX, but I think it's, for me, the discussion you brought up earlier, a holistic approach to solutions and instead of just a piece by piece hardware story. Put DeX into the conversation. How do you see the overall Samsung ecosystem now competing with other OEMs that are kind of in the same arena or trying to address the same markets, not just limited to the foldables, obviously, but the overall hardware and software solutions that Samsung can provide and bring to the table?
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of been one of my biggest enjoyments, over the almost 2 years here at Samsung is, whether it's the phone category, we have a device that's from the mid 100s to now the almost $2,000 in every form factor that there is, right? So we can really fit. We don't have to go to a customer and say, this is the one you have to buy. It's like, what do you need to meet your need for this use case, right? And we can kind of fit that. The other thing is, obviously, we have true consumer devices. We have very pure rugged devices with rugged and tactical and that kind of thing. And then we sort of have things in between where we layer on software with our Knox software and our Enterprise Edition that really gives you the best of both worlds. And so to your point about competing, on one hand, it makes it easier for us, never easy, but easier for us to go talk to customers and say, I don't have to try to force a solution into you. I can kind of talk to you and understand what that is. And then I can bring third-party software partners, et cetera. Maybe it's third-party mounting systems. Maybe it's third-party scanning software. Maybe it's third-party implementation services, and we can really package the solution. And so that's actually the joy of the B2B world, is going into customers and talking about that and kind of helping position that. And I think you kind of put an AI overlay on that. You combine that with Knox. You combine that with DeX, which I tease my team a little bit. I think it's the most undersold thing we have. DeX is a major workforce improvement tool for them. And Knox is one of the best security systems we have on mobile phones. So, just making sure the customers are aware of those solutions are half the battle, and then enabling our partners to really sell those solutions as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So one of my last questions then, if you're thinking about somebody watching the event today or in the space, evaluating how they want to, enable mobility, enable a holistic enterprise solution for their work, what do you think is a key takeaway, in an umbrella above the, considering this event today, but just in general, what is the message that they should be considering for Samsung as a partner, really with how they can embrace or integrate with Samsung as a partner for their mobility or connectivity needs?
Yeah, and I think we probably touched on it a little bit through the interview here. I think it starts with a very broad portfolio that allows us to meet customer demands regardless of what they are, whether it's a phone, whether it's a PC, whether it's a tablet, where we haven't even talked about the wearable that we announced today that now puts Gemini on your wrists, that now adds some additional health features. We see a lot of use cases with safety and other things in wearables, but the broad portfolio, the third party, our dedication to an open ecosystem and third party support, as I talked about, whether it be software or other mounting vendors, et cetera, our channel partners, and you kind of put those all together, and that's our value prop to the enterprise. I would, if I could talk to any enterprise or any customer in the world, I'd ask, tell me your challenges, and we will help you solve them.
Yeah.
And where we can't, we'll bring in partners to help solve them. And I think that's different for us. And then, the last thing I'd add on there is we've led the way on mobile AI and can continue to plan to do that. And we really are building an architecture, a foundation. We talked today about deep into the phone around multimodal AI interaction, and really this idea of sort of an open ecosystem to aggregate many AI forms on the phone, I think will prove to be the right strategy for us. And we're excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, especially with the wearables. I think that's another piece of the puzzle that I think, today we saw the new launches for the watches, but like you said, with healthcare being increasingly a topic of importance, and other employee management, workforce management. I think what I'm looking forward to over the next year in this regard is just how, things like enabling AI on the wrist with Gemini or what have you, but the integration of all of this from the Samsung perspective, including Ring, for example, right? Even a more screenless device but that can be used in multiple settings, whether it's healthcare or I'm looking, as a employee, tracking tool or something like that as well.
Yeah.
For me, that's really the next step. Let's see how this all combines over the next year or two into an even more holistic approach.
Great.
What do you think when we get back together here next year?
Yeah.
Where do you want to be from this point on? Where do you see this whole story going over the next year? Where do what are the plans? What do you think will resonate?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll answer that in two parts. One, kind of back to the platform or the integration. The one thing that we didn't even talk about today that was announced that I think is actually very important, that I hope a year from now is something we really build on, is we acquired a company by the name of Zelf today. Right. And so rather than just trying to create sort of the end devices for the health points, Zelf is really this digital health platform that has over 500 hospitals and 70 plus third-party applications signed up. And so I was really excited to see us try to kind of build this platform to bridge caregivers and people in need of care, whether it's proactively or reactively. And I actually, as we kind of evolve our discussions with specifically the healthcare industry and other regulated industries, I really hope to see that build out more, and I'm excited for the opportunities to come there. And then again, on AI, we're just in the early stage. The whole industry is in the early stages. And so just really excited to see how that evolves, talking with customers and trying to understand how we can help them with their journey, because we have big decisions they have to make. You're going to have a very capable 8-inch tablet in your pocket that folds out, 6.5-inch closed, that is going to be a workhorse for you to consume the AI technology. And I think it's just an opportunity for us to really engage with customers to help them.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of different pieces are coming together that maybe we've even been talking about for a long time in terms of delivering a really holistic solution, enabled by AI, but just overall the right pieces seem to be falling into place, especially for Samsung, and we with the acquisition today as well. I think just lots of pieces coming together in a really interesting way.
Yeah, we agree. And I'm not sure anybody can predict the future, but I think laying the foundation to that, I think we're absolutely doing that, and look forward to kind of hearing from our B2B customers as well as our consumer customers, but our B2B customers are kind of how we can help them with this journey.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Tyler, for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.